Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator at ECOALF. I started there about 2 years ago as an intern, so I create a lot of the content and help really think about how we're going to communicate new launches and new collections and new innovations for the brand. So I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit more about the company.
So describe the history of ECOALF. How did the idea become reality?
So Javier Goyeneche, he's the founder and president. He had been working in the industry, the fashion industry, for a few years before the concept of the brand came along. It actually came with the birth of his two sons, Alfredo and Alvaro. And so at that moment, he really thought about the planet we would leave the next generations. So he realized just how contaminating and polluting the fashion industry is. So what his vision was to create a sustainable fashion brand that stopped using our natural resources in a careless way. And he thought that the best solution and the best way to achieve that would be to create a new generation of recycled materials with the same quality and design as the best non-recycled. So in order for it to be sustainable, they had to have that great quality that people are looking for in clothing. So that's an easy substitute from what they were currently buying to switching over to recycled materials.
Can you explain the difference between fast fashion and sustainable fashion as you sell here at ECOALF?
Yeah, so fast fashion I think is something that they mass produce, typically inexpensive, which means it's a little bit poor in quality. And they do that to follow the trends. So they produce it really quickly to follow the trends, and then after that it's just out of fashion anymore. So I think sustainable fashion is a completely different business model that goes a lot more slowly. It's made with higher quality materials, particularly recycled and low impact materials. And it usually has a timeless design, so that allows it to last for the many seasons to come. It's not just the current season with the current trend. It's something that you can wear for this year, next year, and even 10 years from now.
Yeah, that's great. And what makes fast fashion so harmful? You already mentioned that it's a mass production, but tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's basically the mentality of buying things really quickly, consuming them, and then a month later, they're not in style anymore, so you just get rid of them.
Yeah.
And also, because it's inexpensive, it's typically poor in quality, so you only wear them 7 to 10 times, and then it's thrown out.
Okay.
So that's having a huge impact on the earth. For example, if you wear a t-shirt only 5 times, it is 400% more CO2 emissions that it generates compared to if you wear it 50 times.
Yeah.
So that's a huge amount of CO2 emissions just from constantly buying new clothing instead of wearing the same clothing that you already have.
Crazy. You already mentioned the CO2 production. And how much CO2 is produced by a sustainable shirt, and in comparison to that, to a fast fashion shirt?
It really depends on the material. We do a lot of studies to see the true impact behind all of our items. For example, we just carried out a full life cycle analysis on one of our sneakers. It actually achieved 4.85 kilograms of CO2 emissions. And to put that into perspective, the typical sneaker generates about 13.6. So it's about a third of the CO2 emissions. And when you think about how many pairs of shoes people buy across the entire world, it's a huge impact reducing it by that much. So one of our goals is to continue lowering our emissions and reach zero emissions.
And in which steps do these two CO2 productions or emissions arise? And what are the differences in production of sustainable shirt and a fast fashion shirt?
Okay, usually the most contaminating process is actually the materials themselves, so it depends on the raw materials you choose. We usually opt for recycled materials or low impact materials, particularly in that shoe I was talking about. It's made with our ocean yarn. So that's actually made with plastic bottles collected from the bottom of the ocean. So what really lowers the emissions is that you don't have to use new polyester and create that, and that is very CO2 intensive. So that lowers emissions, and then also at the end of the life cycle, recycling it. So instead of throwing it out and going to landfill or incinerating it, if you're able to recycle the product, then it really lowers the CO2 emissions as well.
So you mentioned the plastic bottles you frequently use in your clothes. How is it that you go from a plastic bottle to a piece of clothing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a complicated process that took a few years of research and development, but basically we collect the bottles, so we separate them. When we collect all the waste from the bottom of the ocean, we separate it into different categories and different qualities, so glass, even if they're tires, for example, and then like the plastic. And then different types of plastic, we can only use the PET, which is a typical plastic bottle. And so with that, we grind it up into chips, so like flakes essentially, and then from those flakes, we turn them into little pellets. And then the pellets, we break them down into yarn, so they're spun into yarn. And then with that yarn, we can make accessories, we can make coats, and we're exploring what other things we can make with them. So we're really excited with the whole process.
So cool. You already said that fast fashion shirts are cheap. Why should consumers start buying sustainable produced shirts? Why is the higher price worth it?
Well, really, I think fast fashion, the issue is that it's lower in quality, and also it's more following the trends rather than a timeless piece you can wear over and over again. So realistically, even though the upfront cost for a sustainable item might be a bit more, realistically you don't have to buy as often. So if you buy fast fashion, once a month, and then in a couple weeks it's no longer wearable because it's poor quality and it's fallen apart, or it's no longer a trend, then you have to buy another shirt. So even if it's inexpensive at first, if you keep having to buy more and more shirts, in the end it's really not much cheaper than investing in one timeless shirt that you can wear forever.
Cool. On your website, you're not only showing the amount of CO2 that has been saved, but also how many liters of water. Why is this aspect so important, and how do you achieve that saving?
So what we do is we actually collaborated with a third party, and they analyze our whole life cycle analysis. So they analyze the materials we use, the production processes we use, and then it generates the impact. So for example, how many liters of water it took, how many CO2 emissions it generated, and then also how much it saved. So we have that next to each of the products on our website so people can understand that everything that they buy has an impact. Even if it's made with recycled materials, it still has an impact. So while our impact may be much lower, we really want consumers to understand that when they choose to buy an item, that they opt for the lowest impact possible, and that they consume less but consume better.
Yeah, your transparency seems really important to you,
It's very
right?
important for us, yeah. It's huge, and our goal goes much beyond just lowering our impact, but we really want to change the fashion industry. We really want people to shop more sustainably, and really just change the way that we're consuming with the fast fashion model. So it's very important that consumers can understand the impact and really educate themselves on how to shop better and more sustainably.
Yeah. I mean, every person can work on a more sustainable planet, for example. So just give us a quick insight. Why is recycling and upcycling so important?
Well, I think it's the most important because our planet has a very limited amount of resources, and every year there are more and more of us on the planet. So what we really have to do is maximize the resources that we already have or that we've already used. So we've already used petroleum to make lots of polyester, and there's tons of plastic all over the planet that we can use and turn it into garments and new things. So we already have those resources available. We just have to take those and use them. So I think that's why it's most important, and that we could just close the cycle. So instead of taking more petroleum and making more plastic, we could just keep recycling and use the same resources rather than new ones.
How does this recycling process work? Describe the different steps from fishing trash from the ocean to making clothes out of it. I mean, that's special. So
yeah, it's really special for us. We actually have our own foundation. It's called ECOALF Foundation. And with that, we have Upcycling the Oceans, which is a project that unites more than 3,500 fishermen across Spain, Greece, Italy, and France now. We just started in France, which is really exciting for us. So what it is voluntary fishermen, and as they go out to fish, they bring in their nets, and each time with the fish, there are like large amounts of waste. So plastic and glass and even tires, tons of different types of things. And so what we do is ECOALF Foundation collects all that waste. They take it to a recycling facility, and there it's sorted by the different types of materials and the different qualities of materials. And so the plastic, which is the plastic bottles, the PET, we can take that and we can turn it into our ocean yarn that we can use to make jackets and footwear and some accessories. For our t-shirts, they're usually actually made with recycled cotton, which was actually another innovative process for us. So that took about 3 years of R&D. And the issue is like when you go to create a t-shirt, all the scraps from cutting out the t-shirt fall to the ground, and then they're usually thrown away. So what we do is we collect leftover fabric, and then we take it and we turn it into our recycled cotton. So it took a while just because it's typically a lot rougher. It's not as soft as organic cotton or virgin cotton. But after years and years of R&D, we were able to get it to be soft enough to make sweatshirts, for example.
That's great. We already talked about cotton. You talked about cotton. What kind of other recycled materials are you using, and what makes them different and better compared to fast fashion materials?
Yeah, so we use our ocean yarn, which is from the Upcycling the Oceans project, recycled cotton. We also use plastic bottles from the land, so not just from the bottom of the ocean. A lot of it comes from like the typical recycling process when you throw away or recycle a plastic bottle. We can take that and turn it into recycled polyester. We use a lot of recycled nylon, which comes from like discarded fishing nets. Linen, which is a low impact item. So compared to cotton, for example, it saves a lot of water. It's less water intensive than organic cotton. And it actually reduces CO2 emissions as it's growing, which is really important. We use even coffee grounds. We have a collaboration with 7-Eleven in Taiwan. So after they make the coffee, we take the coffee grounds and we weave that into our recycled polyester. And that gives jackets odor control properties, ultraviolet ray protection, and quick drying properties. And typically that would involve toxic chemical, but we can do it with coffee because it has those natural properties. So those are some of the primary materials that we use.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're always looking for new materials to continue lowering our impact.
Yeah, so cool.
The reason for ECOALF to come to Berlin, I think it goes so well with the concept of what Berlin represents, also when it comes to sustainability. Berlin is a very laid-back city where people is more authentic and they do their things every day. And that concept of sustainability, also you can see it through people going to the supermarket and returning their plastic, their bottles. You can see it even in the streets. People often leave on a side their bottles, so like the homeless can pick them up, and that I think goes so well with the concept within the company, and it has been working so well with the identity of the DNA of what the company is. It's very fresh, but at the same time connects so perfectly with the essence of what Berlin is like. I think it's a very good match. The concept behind the shop per se, I mean, I started to work a little briefly after they opened the shop, but I heard many stories from the people who actually worked here in the very beginning. It's again trying to tell that story about sustainability. So it's a shop that is made also in a sustainable way. So everything that you will see in the shop reflects sustainability, including starting, for example, from the tables are made of recycled wood. It was taken from a place that used to be also a shop, and that wood was recycled and used again into a new concept. The lamps per se, or even the mannequins are made of recycled paper. Or if they have wood, they have been recycled in a specific way. So something very special that I find about the shop is that it gives you that feeling that it's kind of like a factory, but then you come and learn about sustainability, and everything that you see is sustainable from what you buy and through the whole experience. It's the whole experience complete once you come from the door and learn about the products and what you buy is it's a very good experience to, even for the people who doesn't know what sustainability is, it's a very good way to learn.
What makes your current summer collection so special? What's the idea and meaning behind it?
So what's special about it, aside from the materials that it's made with, is it's called Lost Colors. So it's really inspired in the colors of our ocean that we're losing due to raising temperatures and pollution. So basically, as the temperatures rise, the corals become stressed and then they lose their colors. So we really reflected the colors of the corals, and then we moved them to deep pastels and whites, so that you can see the transition from the bright colors all the way to the white. It's kind of like a warning sign that our oceans are losing their colors due to the habits and the amount we're polluting our atmosphere.
What are the steps, projects, cooperations are planned? What are your vision for your future? You always said you wanted to try to be better and better and take the next step. So give us some insight.
Yeah, totally. We're really focusing on 3 things moving forward. Reducing water consumption. So this past spring-summer 22 collection, we actually reduced 19.8 billion liters of water by using recycled cotton, which is like a ton. So that was a huge achievement for us, but we'd like to continue reducing our water consumption and increasing the amount of recycled cotton we use in our collections. We're also focusing a lot on CO2 emissions. So like that sneaker that I mentioned, we lowered the emissions down to 4.85 kilograms. And our goal now is to reach 0 emissions across our entire collection and company by 2030. And then the third one is we're working on circularity. So we're working on being able to recycle all our products at the end of their life cycles. So when they're no longer wearable, and like way down the line, then we could take them and turn them into new products. So that's kind of like our 3 main goals at the moment.
Okay, so one tip from you for a more sustainable life is recycling.
Yeah.
Do you have any more tips for the everyday person, for the everyday life, for a more sustainable life?
Yeah, totally. I think there are things that we always hear and we've always learned about even in school growing up, but just to like put them into practice. So even going to the supermarket, it seems so simple, but just bring a reusable bag instead of getting a plastic bag or even paper every time. So bring like reusable bags to the supermarket. I started using personally like a bamboo toothbrush. So instead of plastic, you could use the bamboo, which is biodegradable afterwards. Always recycle, reusable water bottles too instead of plastic ones. I think those are some of the key things that we could see every day. And then also really incorporate the consume less but consume better. So instead of going shopping, every month and buying a ton of items to follow the trends, really think about what you need for the whole season and the upcoming seasons, and really invest in like one piece that you can wear for many seasons to come.
So you think that every person can lead a sustainable life?
Totally.
Right?
I think that's the most important too. I think that people are asking businesses to be more sustainable, but really we have the power to be more sustainable. I think each person and their daily habits, multiplied by the whole world population, could have a huge impact on saving CO2 emissions, reducing water. It's really up to each one of us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Frank, for your time and for sharing some insight from ECOALF.
Yes, it was great. Thank you for reaching out to us, and we're always excited to share our mission with everyone and reach new people.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.